Hi, this is Haley with a video podcast on what I'm calling California State Budget Lingo. I want to provide a review of some of the key terminology that is used and the phrases that you should be familiar with that are defined by the Office of Legislative Counsel, as well as the California Department of Finance. So the following are some of these key budget terms. The A pages. This is the term often used to refer to the governor's budget summary, which are the governor's budget highlights. Appropriation. An appropriation is an amount of money and authorization for a specific agency to make an expenditure for a specified purpose. An appropriation schedule. This is the detail of an appropriation showing where the appropriations are made to each segments of a program. The appropriations limit or the state appropriations limit, also known as the SAL or the GAN limit, is the constitutional limitation on the maximum amount of tax proceeds that state or local governments may appropriate in a single fiscal year. This limit is based on a 1986-87 fiscal year appropriations and are adjusted annually based upon a CPI and changes in population and measured over a 2 fiscal year period. Authorized positions in the salaries and wages supplement publication that's part of the budget. It's the past year's total authorized positions in state government. Baseline budget or workload budget. This is the budget year cost of currently authorized services that are adjusted for changes in enrollment, caseload, population, statutory cost of living adjustments, chaptered legislation, one-time expenditures, full year costs of partial year programs, the costs incurred pursuant to constitutional requirements, pursuant to federal mandates and court-ordered mandates, as well as state employee merit salary adjustments and state agency operating expenses, as well as equipment cost adjustments. A BCP or a budget change proposal. A BCP is the acronym for the term budget change proposal, which is a document that's prepared by a state agency and the Department of Finance to propose and document changes to the budget to maintain an existing level of service or to change that level of service or to propose a new program currently not authorized or to eliminate existing programs. Blue pencil or line item veto is the term used to refer to the governor's ability to line item all or a portion of individual items of appropriation in the budget bill or appropriations measures. The budget is, of course, the main budget bill, which includes expenditures and revenues and the expenditure of state monies for the next fiscal year based upon individual line items. The Budget Act is simply the budget bill after it's been enacted into law. The budget bill is the annual bill that's required by the Constitution that sets forth the spending proposal for the next fiscal year, and it contains the budget submitted to the legislature by the governor. The Budget Bill Junior is one or more bills that make adjustments to the annual budget bill after the budget bill has been enacted. And note the plural is Budget Bills Junior, not Budget Bill Juniors. Budget year or fiscal year. The fiscal year is addressed by a proposed budget that begins July 1 and ends June 30th. It's a 12-month period on which our state budget is planned. Note that the federal fiscal year begins October 1 and ends September 30th of the following year. Budget year +1 or +2 +3. This refers to the fiscal year following the upcoming fiscal year that begins July 1. So for example, the 2022-23 budget year begins July 1, 2022. The budget year +1 would begin July 1, 2023. A capital outlay, these are generally state expenditures to acquire or construct real property. A continuous appropriation is a constitutional or statutory expenditure authorization that's renewed each year without further budget action. Control sections, these are sections of the Budget Act. For example, 1.0 30.00, et cetera, that are found at the end of the budget bill. And they provide specific controls on the appropriations that are itemized in Section 2.00 of the Budget Act. The current year budget is the term used in budgeting to designate the operations of the present fiscal year, in contrast to a past budget year or a future budget year. Of course, the following one is the fiscal or budget year. Debt service is the amount of money that's required to pay interest on outstanding bonds and the principal of maturing bonds for the state. DOF, or Department of Finance, or finance for short. The DOF is the fiscal control agency for the administration that prepares the state budget and advises the governor and state agencies on budget matters, as well as legislation that has a fiscal impact. Early action, this is a relatively new term that delineates budget actions that occur prior to the normal June actions for the budget. So they occur usually in the late winter or early spring of the upcoming budget year. A finance letter are revisions to the budget bill or current year expenditures that are proposed by the Department of Finance, and they're addressed to the legislature. A fund balance, for budgeting purposes, this is the amount of the excess of a fund's resources over its expenditures. GF, or general fund, this is the state's main account for revenues, primarily from personal income tax, as well as corporation taxes and sales and use taxes. The governor's budget summary is the companion publication to the governor's budget. The summary outlines the governor's policies, goals, and objectives of the forthcoming budget year or fiscal year. January 10 budget, or Jan 10 budget, refers to the governor's initial budget proposal, which is due under the state constitution no later than January 10th. JLBC, the Joint Legislative Budget Committee, is a joint committee of the two houses of the legislature with an equal number of assembly members and senators. It's the duty of the JLBC to ascertain facts and make recommendations to the legislature concerning the state budget, as well as the revenues and expenditures of our state and the organization and functions of the state and the executive branch departments, subdivisions, agencies, boards, and commissions, with an overall view to reduce the cost of state government and secure greater efficiencies and economies. LAO, Legislative Analyst Office. The legislative analyst is an appointee of the two houses of the legislature, and his or her staff provides thorough, nonpartisan analysis of the budget submitted by the governor. The LAO also analyzes the fiscal impact of other legislation and prepares analyses of ballot measures that are published in the state ballot pamphlet. Line item veto, or blue pencil, is the term used to refer to the governor's constitutional authority to line item veto to either reduce or eliminate an item of appropriation in either the budget bill junior, a trailer bill that has appropriations, or just a general appropriation bill. LA, or local assistance, are expenditures made for the support of local governments or other locally administered activities. May revise, or may budget revision. The governor is required by statute to update his or her January budget proposal after the April tax receipts have been made available. This occurs by May 14th, and the May revise is an updated estimate of revenues and expenditures that replaces those estimates that were contained in the governor's January 10 budget submittal. One-time cost is a proposed or actual expenditure that is non-recurring. It's usually only in the annual budget and not permanently included in baseline expenditures of the state. Reversion, this occurs with the return of unused portions of an appropriation to the fund, to the actual fund, general fund or special fund, from which that particular appropriation was made. Schedule, this is the detail of an appropriation in the budget bill or the final budget act that shows the distribution of appropriations to each of the specified programs. Special funds, these are funds created by statute or administratively per Government Code Section 13306. And special funds are used to budget and account for taxes, licenses, and fees that are restricted by law for particular activities of California state government. There's also summary schedules, and these are the various schedules in the governor's budget summary that summarize state revenues, expenditures, and other fiscal and personnel data for the past, current, and budget years. And then the last lingo for the budget that I have is the trailer bill. And these are bills that are required to enact any statutory changes necessary for implementation of the budget or budget bills junior.